Hello everyone and welcome again to the Gaming News Roundup. As always, my name is Amata and I'm going to bring in you all the latest in gaming as of the 13th of June 2012. The many Pokemon fans out there will be happy to know there's been some news on the exclusive Pokemon for Black and White 2. Now basically obviously it's a long-standing tradition for every version of Pokemon to have some exclusive ones that you can only catch within that game and that game only. Now, basically, people that choose to get Pokemon Black 2 will get Magby and Baneri, while Pokemon White 2 will get Elekid and Skitty. Interesting choices there. I'm not sure which one I would go with. I mean, I like Magby, but not really Baneri, and Elekid is pretty cool, so I don't personally know which one I want to go with. However, there's also been some changes on the cities from the original Pokemon Black and White. Elisa's become like a fashion show and she now has a Fluffy. And there's also been some information on Keldeo's resolution form. Apparently it is to be activated by visiting the forest in Sangi Town and having a Terrakion, Virizion and Cambadion. I probably pronounced all of those wrong, so please forgive me. Keldeo appears to change once it learns Secret Sword, so some interesting things there, changes appearance and things like that. And you will of course need a reflecting mirror to achieve the Tornadus, Thundurus and Landora storms. Now also, happily, Nintendo has confirmed that the Poké Transfer works between all DS games, and you will even receive a special mission in Castelia City if you show a person Meluetta. So yeah. And also, as most of you probably know, Brock is going to be returning in Pokemon Black and White 2, which is awesome. I'm sure most of us immediately thought of the character from the show there rather than the character within the games, but still, Brock is a pretty awesome character and it's always nice to see some friendly faces in a new game like such as this. I'm not really sure which version I'm personally going to go with. I'm kind of tempted to go with Pokemon Black 2, but I'm not actually sure. I'll have a little think on that. There have been rumours circulating for a while that Ubisoft might be working on an Expendables 2 game, and it seems like it might have been confirmed by Australian Classification Board of all things. Now basically a post was made by the board overnight for the rating of the game, which is MA15+. The listing also seems to suggest that adds a multiplayer element to the game. Now, as I'm sure most of you know, most game tie-ins and to do with films and vice versa are usually pretty terrible, with some exceptions of course. So I'm just wondering what's going to happen with this. Because Expendables was obviously an action film, I think this could maybe work a little better if they don't try to follow a linear story, because I feel like that's the trap that most video games that are based on films fall into. They are tied to follow the storyline of the film as much as possible and all this kind of stuff. But maybe because this is a more action orientated game that's basically going to have a narrative just as a framework as an excuse to have all the cool explosions and stuff, maybe it'll work a little better. And because it's Ubisoft and they're generally a pretty solid. Now obviously most movie video game tie-ins are pretty terrible, and vice versa obviously, with a few exceptions of course, but more often than not a video game that is based on a film is terrible and a film that's based on a video game is pretty awful as well. But because this is a more action oriented title, maybe they can avoid the trap of trying to follow a linear storyline, as that is the mistake, at least in my opinion, that most video games based on films do not work, because they're tied to following the storyline of the film as much as possible, and obviously that just extremely hinders the writers and creators of the game if they have to worry about that, rather than just letting the creativity flow and making the best game possible. But because this is a more action orientated title, maybe this won't happen, because obviously the storyline is basically going to be a nice framework just so we can have an excuse for the cool explosions and all that good stuff. And also because it's Ubisoft that are rumoured to be developing it, obviously they're a pretty solid developer and they don't tend to let us down very often, so maybe they'll basically look at previous games and go, well, you know, look guys, all of these have been terrible. So I don't think they'll fall into that trap, but I guess we'll have to see. And it's bad news for Zanga, and seems to be for Facebook and casual gaming in general in that regard. The shares are down to $5, dropping more than 10% today. Now, analysts are pointing the cause of this towards an waning interest in Facebook gaming, which is obviously where Zanga originally gained most of its popularity. Apparently, everyone is playing mobile games these days. The analysts exactly said, Zanga's daily active users dropped 8.2% to 54.2 million in May, according to appdata.com. A website that tracks apps on Facebook and mobile platforms. So obviously you think, well, 54.2 million, that's still a huge number, and it is, but that's still a huge drop in users. And also the large investment in the Draw Something app also seems to be really hurting them, as that game, it seems to just be losing users at a very rapid pace. They did recently hire some celebrities, or I say celebrities in quotations there, Jennifer Lopez and Enrique Iglesias, to help promote the game, but why they picked those particular people when, you know, they're them and nothing at all to do with Draw Something or even slightly related to that kind of game, I will not know, and it doesn't seem to have worked all that well. Now, I'm not sure what would actually happen if Zanga were to go down. I think a lot of more hardcore gamers would be probably relieved to see the downfall of social gaming, or at least less Facebook games, because I'm sure we've all gotten annoyed with those so-and-so sent you a request in Farmville or whatever things, and just the huge boom in Facebook gaming was extremely annoying for a while. So maybe if it just becomes lower key, then it would be okay. I think it would be a shame if it were to go completely, because although it does have a negative side, this whole Facebook thing, gaming wise I mean, obviously, there is a positive side of it's getting people into gaming who might not have previously even thought about it, and well, a lot of them are just bored housewives or whatever, spending some time, which is fair enough. Some of them might actually want to play something a little more depth, excuse me, and, you know, actually get into gaming because they've played this and thought, oh, actually I like this kind of game, but, you know, it's a little bit too shallow for me, I want to play something else. So I feel like it'd be a shame if this company or Facebook gaming in general were to disappear completely, but I don't think anyone would complain if it became a little more low-key. Anyway guys, that's me done for the Gaming News Roundup. I hope you've enjoyed it. Look out for some content as well later on today. I'm going to be putting up a video on the Humble Indie Bundle 5. I'm going to have a look at basically all the games within that pack, because I recently purchased it, because even though I did already own a couple of the games in the pack, there was enough good games there to warrant the price, considering how cheap it is. Anyway, so keep an eye out for that. I hope you've been enjoying the content on the channel lately, and if you haven't, please do leave some constructive comments as to why not. It's always helpful for people to just give us some constructive tips as to how to improve our channel. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next time.